Hello, Lindsay Elliott from Lindsay Elliott Coaching here. How are you? I'm back today with another Ask Me Anything question. And this question is all about criticism of others. And comes from Carla. And she writes, "Dear Lindsay, I find it really difficult when someone criticizes me. I find I think about what they have said over and over and replay my response to them in my head. I feel so hurt or defensive when someone criticizes me, and I'd love to be one of these people who just brushes it off. Can you help me to see this differently, please? Thanks so much for answering my question." So I think this is something that as human beings, it's a bit of, again, of a 101 of we all can struggle with this. Or it's very rare people, I think, who don't have some kind of emotional reaction to being criticized. So the first piece to see is that all of the overthinking that your mind does after it is, as far as I can see, it seems like when that's going on, that's kind of just like a self-protection thing. So for our minds, they obviously like to scan for threats. And one of the threats that they scan for is being rejected, because that means being kicked out of the tribe. So I have got another video about this where I talk about how minds work and what they're kind of scanning for. But one of the things that they scan for is, if you imagine that one of the threats to survival, like 200,000 years ago, when our brains were where our brains biologically still are, was being chucked out of the tribe. And if you were chucked out of the tribe, as in rejected, which is what criticism can feel like, rejection, you were going to be pretty much dead, because trying to survive in a wild environment with wild animals and diseases and other tribes and weather, terrible storms and no housing, pretty much you probably weren't going to live very long. Now, obviously today, being rejected or ostracized or kicked out of the tribe doesn't have the same physical body threatening, kind of life-ending threats that it did 200,000 years ago, but it still feels like that to our brain. So the first thing to know is just that overthinking is just something that happens, okay? When you notice it happening, if you can just notice it and get a little bit of space and know that, okay, this is my mind, just going to get my teeth, this is my mind just going chatter, 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 because there's been like a perceived threat of the criticism. Looks a bit like, oh, am I going to be ostracized? Am I going to be rejected? And the brain just does what brains do. It thinks. So it goes over and over it and tries to look for ways out of it. And also it's probably trying to stop you from really feeling it, okay, from feeling the feelings, the emotions that are coming up. And it's telling a story and it's saying what it means about that person and what it means about you and all of those sorts of things. So this is just what a mind does. It likes to overthink, it likes to overanalyze, it likes to try and find a solution by more thinking, which, by the way, doesn't happen very often. So just knowing that that's going to happen is sometimes enough just to kind of get a little bit of space from it. And, again, standard human behavior, brains just overthink when it looks like there's a threat. So the other piece, the next piece of it really is, we really, really cannot control what other people think of us. Now, I know that from a certain perspective, it can look like, well, if I do everything right, if I behave in a certain way, if I don't upset anybody, then everyone's going to think that I'm lovely and I won't receive any criticism. But that isn't true on a couple of different fronts. One, there's just so many people, and everybody has such differing opinions about what's good, what's perfect, what's bad, what's good behavior, what's bad behavior, what's rude behavior, what's polite behavior. Like, there's just so many different variations that we couldn't possibly take all of that into consideration. And the other more interesting and sort of pulled back piece of it is, because we're all only living in our own sort of thought created bubble, we can't know what's in someone else's thought created bubble, and we can't influence that. So everybody's got their own stream of thought and feeling flowing through them all of the time, and that's what's creating their reality, and that's what's creating their reality of you. And we really can't influence what their thought and feeling is bringing to them. It's not like we can magically kind of send rays to them to make them like us and make them not criticize us. So when we really kind of step back from it and see, I can never control what other people think of me. I don't need to control what other people think of me, because it's only really what's happening internally with me that's important. That can help to loosen it a bit as well. And the other thing that I like to remember is that when we receive a criticism, particularly if it does feel like it's sort of unfounded or a bit mean or a bit cruel, we never know what mood, state of mind that person is in when they deliver it. So invariably, if someone is suffering in some way inside of themselves, if they're in a low mood, if they've been criticized, or they've got something going on that's making them feel bad about themselves, most people, or invariably more people from that place, are much more likely to be critical than when they're in a higher mood. So certainly I know this within myself. Sometimes I see behavior in my child that sometimes I might pull him up on one day, if I'm in a bit of a low mood, a bit stressed, feeling a bit annoyed. And on another day, I'll just kind of let it go, you know? So it's really seeing that, like, it's like we're all separate entities. And over here, you've got the person doing the criticizing who's swimming in their own thoughts and feelings about you and their own mood, which is then influencing their thoughts and feelings about you. And then over here, you've got you also in your own thoughts and feelings about you and swimming around in your mood. And the two don't come together. It's just we kind of get to experience them at the same time. But what other people think of this is 100% subjective. It's open to change. It moves all of the time. And it's not the truth, not the capital T truth. So when you receive a criticism, you can know, okay, that's their subjective experience of me in the moment. And I don't have to take it on board. So you'll also see this about yourself. Your own opinions of yourself are 100% subjective as well. They change. Sometimes you can think you're doing okay in life, and sometimes you're really critical of yourself in life. So it all depends what's flowing through us. And sometimes that criticism, as I said, that they're making of you says more about them than it does about you. So I'll give you an example to hopefully illustrate this a bit. So a while ago, I received some feedback that felt a bit like criticism to me, but was, you know, on my appearance on a video. And I felt kind of like the poke of it, as I like to call it. I felt like that, like the emotional reaction to it. And I let myself just feel it. And I noticed my mind starting to talk about, how do I look? And am I attractive? And what's going on? And I let my mind did this, and my mind started to talk about it. Noticed the criticism, went, did its thing. And I just let it be there. And I just waited and I let it be there. And then as it settled, and I saw that, okay, that's still that little poke in me about getting older and wrinkles and all those sorts of things. Okay, that's in me, which I'm going to talk about that in a moment. And then what I really saw as I let it settle and I'd let myself feel it, I was then able to reflect more on, okay, so this must be really important to that person to say something to me about this. Because it's, for me, really, what I feel is important here is the content of what I'm saying, not how I look. But for this person, it obviously, maybe for them, attractiveness is really important. How they look is really important. And so that looked like a useful thing to kind of say to me. So I hope that makes sense. That it's always about the other person as well as about you. Well, in fact, it's really vastly more about the other person, I think, than it is about you. So the other piece of this to see as well is that if I had utterly no insecurity about how I look, and I'm a human being and I'm a woman of a certain age, so I'm not holding that expectation that I should have no insecurity about how I look. I appreciate where it comes from. I know it's not the truth, but it flows through me and it shows up. If I'd had zero of that, then the comment that was made would probably have just brushed it off and derailed me for days. And I may have never recorded another video again. Now, what happened was there's a little bit of in me of that it was able to poke, a little bit of me. So what I mean by that is if it's able to kind of poke you emotionally, I think and I don't know this to be like 100% truth, but I feel this is how it looks to me, Carla, that we are believing it. We are believing something about that criticism in order for it to poke us, in order for us to have a strong emotional reaction to it. So that's something where it can be useful with criticism. It can show you, oh, okay, when you're a bit calmer about it, oh, what am I believing to be true about me? What beliefs am I holding which won't be true? What erroneous beliefs am I holding about myself that this was able to affect me? And that's one of the beneficial things I think about going through an experience of criticism. And the other place where it can also be useful, I think, is to see not when you're right in it, like emotionally, but afterwards, just to see, okay, from a calmer, more pulled back, calm perspective, is there anything useful in this criticism? Is there anything positive I can take on board? Is there any way that I can grow from this? So as it isn't all of this, oh, how other people think this about me, and it's all kind of swept up in the emotion of it, but more to see, oh, okay, is there anything that I can improve here in a neutral way, not in a I need to be better way? Is there any way that I can grow here? That can be sometimes the way to let the experience move through you a bit more. Okay. And the very final piece I'll say, because I feel like I've probably gone on for quite a while, is it's so important just to let yourself feel it, because what happens is when we feel that criticism, because it feels uncomfortable, we don't like to think of people not liking us, or we've done something wrong, or we've upset someone. But if we could just let ourselves be in that and feel it to its full expression, just let it come out and through, then it's just so helpful in knowing that we can navigate that, knowing we can feel it, rather than clamping down on it and going, no, I can't feel this criticism. And then criticism becomes a big thing. And then we get all spun up and sped up when it happens, rather than just knowing, I'm just going to let myself feel this. It's going to pass. It's going to move. You're going to see it differently. You may even see the wisdom in it, or see something different in it. Just allow yourself to feel it, Carla. It's not going to kill you. It may be uncomfortable, and it will change. And then once you've felt it, you may be able to see, oh, okay, what am I believing about myself? And is there anything I can take on board here? So I hope this has been helpful, Carla. Please do let me know if you've got any further comments or questions. And if you would like to ask me anything, then please do email your questions. The email is now on the screen, to lindsay@lindsayelliott.co.uk, and I would love to answer them. Okay, thanks so much for watching. Bye-bye.